Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Sunday night from Indianapolis, Indiana. Buck Rising here with you for another edition. We are going to talk about what happened at Lucas Oil Stadium today with the Titans and the Indianapolis Colts. A dramatic game, one that was filled with all manner of twists and turns, all kinds of crazy events, some that benefited the Titans, some that benefited the Colts, some that didn't benefit anybody, especially those of us watching at home. But a third overtime game for the Tennessee Titans, who have come out victorious and are sitting at 6-2, heading out to Los Angeles. We'll spend some time discussing it over the course of tonight's show. We will get into what impressed you the most about the way that the Titans won. We'll talk about also what kind of stressed you out the most, because there was a variety of different angles that caused stress throughout the course of this game. You'll hear from Mike Vrabel. You'll hear from some of the players. And then we'll spend some time on the most concerning news of all, which we will talk about later on in the show regarding Derrick Henry. Before we get to any of that, I need you guys to share this show around on social media, if you would be so kind. If you're hanging out with us on Facebook Live, you can share now to public. That's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. If you are on YouTube or Twitch with us, please subscribe to the A to Z Sports channel, where you can get involved with any of our live streaming content on a regular basis, multiple times a day, 7 days a week, certainly, across the A to Z Sports atmosphere, because we got a lot of different places. Rudy Castillo says Buck had a segment why the Colts versus the Titans could be a good game or something like that. Says Rudy, yeah, we talked about it on the radio show. I said this is probably going to be the best game of the week, and that was before the Cardinals played the Packers. But I think this was probably more dramatic than the Cardinals and the Packers, even if this won't get the same kind of attention, because obviously that being a primetime game on Thursday night in front of everybody, there was there's a lot more eyeballs on that than will be on Titans Colts. Larry Ford says, man, I feel like I snorted a big bag of booger sugar during that game. Had me stressed and heart pounding. Well, Larry, I will take your word for it as far as going skiing, as they call it, is concerned. But what I'll tell you is that we're going to have a lot of fun talking about this game over the course of tonight's show. And now that more of you are here, we can go ahead and begin the show officially. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Sunday night, not from the DraftKings Sportsbook studios, but from downtown Indianapolis, Indiana, the state of my youth, the state of my birth. Proud as always to be presented to you by the fine folks at Two Rivers Ford. Since 1983, they've been providing you exceptional customer service and award-winning American-made Ford vehicles. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet is where you can visit them, or online at tworiversford.com. By the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage, the official real estate agent of the Tennessee Titans is Gary Ashton and the Ashton team. Trust the best when it comes to finding your dream address without the stress at GaryAshton.com. Of course, you have Brymak Mechanical, BRYMAK, Brymak.com. Satisfaction guaranteed on all of your HVAC needs. And when you need the best in the business as far as gambling odds are concerned, you know that you can go no better place than DraftKings Sportsbook using the promo code A2Z Sports, ATOZ Sports, in the DraftKings Sportsbook app. I'll tell you what they're offering you as far as some great offers are concerned. But let's start in the obvious place. The Titans beating the Colts today. It was a dramatic game. It was a dramatic start. It was a disastrous start for the Tennessee Titans. They go down 14-0. Ryan Tannehill throws one of the worst interceptions that I've seen him throw. Now, he kind of walked us through why it may be not as bad as may not be as bad as you may think. But I will say to you, as far as this is concerned, this was as telling a game as any moment that the Tennessee Titans have had this season. It is an incredibly difficult thing that they've done, and they've overcome it in great stride. Now, it didn't look pretty. It was not clean. It stressed you out probably a great deal, and we'll get to those stressors later on in the show. But first, I want to start with your Two Rivers Ford take on this Sunday night before you hear from Mike Vrabel and some of the players, because I was in the post-game press conferences just about. I mean, I don't even think Lucas Oil. I mean, I would pick up my laptop and show you my view up here from downtown Indy, but I think it's too dark for you to see Lucas Oil. Lucas Oil like 2 blocks away from where I'm sitting right now. So was obviously there, so we'll hear from those parties, and they'll kind of walk you through what happened this afternoon, because it was a shit show, make no mistake. But let's first start with your Two Rivers Ford take here on a Sunday night. In the comments on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch, please let me know what most impressed you about the Tennessee Titans in this win over the Colts. What one thing stood out to you as you're kind of taking a step back, looking at this after you've had time to celebrate a great victory for the Tennessee Titans as a Titans fan, or maybe if you're a Colts, we have some Colts fans in the chat. If you're a Colts fan, more in the loss. What most impressed you about this particular Tennessee team? Because I'll tell you, there's a couple of things that it really left me with that we'll talk about over the course of this evening show. Before we do that, though, I'll tell you quickly about our friends at Two Rivers Ford. I drove my Ford vehicle up here. I made sure that I got award-winning customer service when I took it out to the service center at Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet. It's just one of the many reasons why they are one of the most trusted brand names in the state of Tennessee. Two Rivers Ford is always there for you as the customer, or even as a potential customer, whether you are choosing to give them your business as you search for your new vehicle or decide to purchase your new vehicle, or if you're simply considering finding a new vehicle through Two Rivers Ford. Two Rivers Ford has a non-commissioned sales staff, which means they put no pressure on you throughout the course of the car buying experience. They have incredible Ford vehicles like the new 2022 Ford Maverick, which is a really cool pickup truck, but not with the full pickup truck size, not necessarily for those of you who like to drive trucks, but don't necessarily need all that comes with the F-150. And if you're a truck guy or girl, you can get an F-150 too. The new 2021 F-150, the 2022 F-150 Electric Lightning is coming out very, very soon. So keep an eye out for that. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet is where you visit them, or online at tworiversford.com. So we go throughout the course of the game. We go into overtime. I'm starting because I thought I had planned to drive back to Nashville right after the game was over if the Titans won, because typically, I love you guys to death. I always enjoy writing, but when I write stuff after wins, you guys don't read it as often as when I write stuff after they lose. So I figured, I told Austin and Zach, I'm like, hey, if they win, I'm going to have most of my writing done, but I'll wait to publish it until Monday morning because more people will consume it at that point, and I'll hightail it back to Nashville directly after the press conferences are over, and I'll do primetime from home. It'll be great. And, of course, the game goes to overtime. Ryan Tannehill gets hurt. Derrick Henry gets hurt, and we'll talk about that later on in the show. But at this point, I'm having to overtime starts, or you see Carson Wentz have the worst interception I've ever seen thrown. Elijah Molden takes it back for 6. I think he has to go like a total of a yard. Bud Dupree forcing the pressure in that moment. Elijah Molden gets the touchdown. Titans look like they're cruising. The Colts have the ball with 1:33 left to play. Then Kevin Byard commits one of the most egregious defensive pass interference penalties I have ever seen that gives the Colts 42 free yards. They get down in the end zone. They've set up a Jonathan Taylor Wildcat play. Number 28 goes waltzing into the end zone. Tie ball game, overtime. So at that point, I'm on my phone rebooking another night at my hotel because I'm like, damn, I only had one night at the hotel. I'm not going to want to drive home. I'm not going to have enough time to after the game, even if they win, to drive home and make it for primetime. I don't want to drive back to Nashville after I do primetime tonight. Let me just stay in Indianapolis another night. And my bosses, both at the radio station and at A to Z Sports, they'll be good with it. So get all these things done. And then the game takes place in overtime the way that it does. And there's a million different things that could go right and go wrong for both teams. And somebody at the end of that has to win it. and it ended up being in the Titans' favor because in those final moments, Elijah Molden, who had been summarily torched in the first half, made an incredible play to give the Titans the lead and put them in a position to even have the tie in hand to force overtime. So Elijah Molden bounces back in a big way. Kevin Byard, who has the egregious defensive pass interference that puts the Indianapolis Colts on literally the goal line, on the Titans goal line, wildcat play, tie game, overtime, picks off Carson Wentz, forces only Carson Wentz's third interception of the year. Molden was the second. Carson Wentz has only thrown 3 total picks, and 2 of them the Titans own. And it's the only one Carson Wentz has thrown since week 2 against the Los Angeles Rams. So all of this happens. Kevin Byard gets a pick to help seal that game. Titans win. And the thing that I come away thinking after the press conferences are done, after I've watched all this dramatically play out, the thing that I come away thinking is, damn if this team's not resilient.
INT in overtime after what happened at the end of regulation?
Yeah, I definitely take a lot of blame for putting my team in that position, even going to overtime. Sitting on the sideline the whole time, just thinking about I had to redeem myself. It's not funny, but I was actually on the sideline, like preparing my speech, like, if the game would have went the other way. But I definitely take that on my shoulders. But that's the thing about this team. We're just resilient. We're going to keep swinging. And was able to make a big play at the end of the game, and we won the game. So Randy kicked a great kick. So I'm just happy that we won the game.
Kevin Byard had a post-game speech prepared to give his team if that thing kind of spiraled on him. And fortunately for the Titans, they ended up rectifying a lot of their mistakes. And listen, they were not perfect today, not by any stretch of the imagination. And you'll hear from Mike Vrabel about penalties and what was legit and what wasn't legit later on in the show. I think it's the best 90 seconds of Mike Vrabel we've heard all season. It's up there in terms of press conference quotes from Mike in certainly in my career covering him, and he's only been the head coach here for now 3 years and 8 games. So for the Titans, there was a lot that went wrong, but ultimately the guys that had made those mistakes found ways to bounce back and get this thing under control. So the thing that comes to mind for me when you talk about this Titans win, what most impressed me was the way that, they have been doubted quite a bit. I have doubted them quite a bit. I think a lot of people looked at them after the Jets game and was like, what the hell is this thing? This was not the bill of goods that we were sold. And you know what? You're right. You weren't sold the starting lineup of Nick Westbrook-Akina, Chester Rogers, and Josh Reynolds. You were sold Julio Jones, A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, Jeff Simmons, Bud Dupree, Danico Autry, Harold Landry, and you're getting a lot of that stuff. And ultimately, that Jets game, after they just put it on the Bengals today, making the Titans the top team. The Titans are the top team in the AFC. Now, that could change. It could change very quickly. There's still a lot of football left to play, 9 weeks of football, if my math in this new 17-game regular season holds up. But what stood out the most to me today was the resiliency of the Tennessee Titans, and that was basically my biggest takeaway of the game. It doesn't matter who downs them. It doesn't matter what goes wrong. It doesn't matter how many different things either conspire against them or are a product of their own creation. It feels like the Titans need a little adversity in their life to be able to physically overcome it, and a lot of times they'll do it to themselves, which is mind-numbing. If you're a fan, I'm sure. But I'm infinitely impressed with Mike Vrabel and his team because they are not everybody practices what they preach as far as coaching is concerned. But Mike has been consistent in his message for 3 years and now 8 games into his 4th year. The locker room responds to that. They respond to each other. They don't just, it's the coaching staff, it's the locker room, it's John Robinson, it's the ownership, it's all of it seems to work really well. And everybody seems to take and have bought in to that particular approach. And now you see it bearing out dividends in moments like this in a really, really tight game that I thought the Titans could have got their ass kicked. And I came into this game. I feel like if you watch primetime, if you listen to my radio show, if you listen to the podcast, I'm pretty sure that my analysis, I'm not pretty sure, I know for a fact, my analysis all week was, hey, man or woman, whomever, whatever your pronoun choice is, this is going to be their toughest game of the year. And ultimately, I think it was their toughest game of the year. And you know what makes the difference between them and their toughest moment of this year and, say, in 2018 or 2016 or whenever you choose to kind of focus in on pivotal Titans moments? The difference is that they came through with flying colors, even as they made you sweat it out throughout the course of 60 minutes and into overtime. What most impressed you about what the Tennessee Titans did today? We will get to your comments here in just a second, right after I remind you about our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL and an authorized sports betting partner of the NBA. Is DraftKings Sportsbook. Now at DraftKings Sportsbook, they understand that a strong starting five is something that you absolutely must have in basketball. And because of that, they are giving you free $200 in free bets if you bet $5 on any NBA team to win their game. If the NBA team that you bet wins, you get $200 in free bets. It's just that simple at DraftKings Sportsbook. All you have to do is download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, plug in the promo code A2Z Sports to get in on the action, to place a $5 bet on any NBA team to win their game and win $200 in free bets if your team pulls off the victory. You can do that with promo code A2Z Sports this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an authorized sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older and in Tennessee to bet. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. So, what most impressed you about this Titans win as we sit here getting closer and closer to halftime in Sunday Night Football? Albert Marks says, Buck, you don't get to stay in your childhood home? Well, no, I'm not from Indianapolis. I'm from Evansville. I'm from Evansville, Indiana. Evansville, Indiana it's closer to Nashville than it is to Indianapolis. So no, I'm not going to stay 2.5 hours away when it takes 3 hours and 45 minutes to get here from Nashville. That doesn't make any sense, Albert. And also, you could have just asked me a very, very traumatic question. What if there's some kind of internal strife between me and my family? What would you do then if you just asked such a very, very personal question? Albert, think before you type in the chat. Lucky for you, I have no childhood. Well, I'm sure I have some kind of childhood trauma, but none that I'm willing to share at this point. That I save for my therapist on Wednesdays. What most impressed you about the Titans? About the Titans win? Frank Hickerson says 96. Danico Autry again. Danico Autry, you could say that about the entire season, not just today. What's most impressed you about the Titans season through 8 games? I think Danico Autry is a totally fair nominee. This is a revenge game for Danico. He was not thrilled. He is not thrilled with the situation that Indianapolis didn't pay him, understanding that they had a whole bunch of money to spend, and they're saving it for some very important players as well. But also, Danico Autry is a great player. He's made all the difference in the world here on Tennessee's defense. He got a little injured today, but he helped make up for some of the snaps that Bud Dupree couldn't go. They were playing Bud Dupree a little less than they had against Kansas City. Bud Dupree was able to make some plays as well. But what Danico Autry is doing right now is really, really critical, and you like to see that at this point. This team truly believes, says Paul Martinez. Yeah, they really do. I think that sports cliches are dumb, but I really think that I really think that belief is legitimate. Doug Griffith says, Buck, tell me if I'm wrong. I'm so sick of our supposed fans hating on Tannehill because he had an off day. Isn't he the one mostly responsible for the win today? Well, him and A.J. Brown. Well, I think the defense does play a big part in it. I thought the defense was hugely disruptive. Tannehill did have some turnovers. One, he got hit. There was another interception that he did throw an interception. It was ruled a fumble. The Titans regained possession. It was a whole weird sequence of events. And speaking of weird sequences of events, you'll hear from Mike Vrabel about one that was particularly weird. But yeah, Ryan Tannehill was a stud. I think Ryan Tannehill is one of the best quarterbacks in football. And I know that he had some turnovers today that probably made that game a little harder than it needed to be. But also, the Colts are a really good defense, and they've been causing turnovers all year long. They're +9. I think even after today, they were +9 coming in. I think because the turnover differential ended up even between the Titans and the Colts 2 interceptions apiece for both quarterbacks, then they remain +9 as far as turnover differential is concerned. They forced 4 total against the San Francisco 49ers not a week ago on Sunday Night Football when they played in San Fran, when the defense is inherently at a disadvantage when you see the kind of conditions that they were playing in on Sunday Night Football last week. So, yeah, I mean, there's people who hate on Mike Vrabel, right? And Mike Vrabel is obviously an above average coach, and you're lucky to have him if you're a Titans fan. People are going to hate on Ryan Tannehill, and Ryan Tannehill is an above average quarterback, and you're lucky to have him. People are going to hate on Shane Bowen. People have hated on Shane Bowen, and I think that Shane Bowen has done a pretty stand-up job that not as many people are talking about, because it's so much easier to point fingers and lambaste somebody when you don't really know what's to blame for all of the things that are going wrong, i.e. the 2020 Titans defense. I think Shane Bowen has done more than enough to redeem himself in that regard, and having better personnel helps, right? So all of this, you can say that about any hell, you could probably find Derrick Henry haters out there. The internet is filled with people who hate things. It's what makes the internet the worst place in the world. Even though it's the best place in the world in some things, and it's also the worst thing in the world possible for humanity. I think the internet is the sole cause of all of our societal ills, but that's a conversation. We'll save that for the sociology podcast. D Good says, "Hey Buck, I heard you love a good in-season power ranking." Yeah, no, I would rather get punched in the face than have people send me their complaints about where the Titans are going to be in the power rankings this week. Let me tell you, I do not care. It's that Mike Tomlin clip. We do not care. You shouldn't care. I don't care. Do you actually spend the time to read power rankings, or you just click on them to see where the Titans rank? No, power rankings are useless. Power rankings are just as useless as score predictions. Power rankings are as useless as record predictions. Power rankings mean nothing. So let go and let God with the power rankings. What most impressed you about the Titans today? Impressed about overcoming penalties, says Matthew Stanley. And this is a good transition to our next conversation, because they had 10 penalties for 151. I think it was 151 or 150 yards. Let me double check my NFL Jesus handy dandy stat sheet. The Tennessee Titans finished with 11 penalties for 161 yards. So they had, and I guess that's not, so the Byard penalty is included in there. Amani Hooker had a 41-yard penalty. Kevin Byard had a 42-yard penalty on those 2 defensive pass interference plays. Like, it's really, really bad. And you're right, they did overcome it. But Mike Vrabel was really good on that in our post-game press conference with him. And so I'll let you hear from the head coach here in just a second, because absolutely they did. So now let's move on and talk about the thing that stressed you out the most about the Titans. Was it the fact that Tannehill was turning the ball over? Is it the fact that Derrick Henry was hurt in the first half, clearly struggled throughout the course of the game? And Chilmode says, "Now, Buck, now some of those penalties were bogus." Well, Chilmode, did I not just tell you to wait and we'll talk about it together? Why are you jumping to an assumption saying that I'm assuming that all of the penalties are good? It doesn't matter whether some of the penalties are bogus or not, right? Don't be so thick. It matters that the penalties were costing your team 161 yards. Doesn't matter what I think of the penalties. Yeah, I think some of the penalties were bullshit. I thought the Titans got away with a ton of defensive pass interference on the Indianapolis Colts early in the first half. I thought they were getting away with DPI murder. And then it ended up being that the officials are bad on both sides of the game. So yeah, I think plenty of the penalties were bullshit. Don't jump to assumptions just to say that I think that all 161 penalty yards were legitimate. No, but it doesn't matter, because it counted against your team. And that is a great way to lose a football game, giving up 11 penalties for 161 yards, whether you think the ones that didn't count mattered or did matter. It doesn't matter, because it counted against your football team. Don't get caught up in whether you think it was bullshit or not, because it's real. It's on a stat sheet. I witnessed it. I was there, literally, like I said, 2 blocks from my hotel at this point. What most stressed you out about the Titans game? Let me know on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We'll talk about it together right after I tell you about our friends at the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. The best in the business is Gary Ashton and the Ashton real estate team. Trust the best because they will give you the best intel. They will get you the best properties that aren't even available on the market yet. The Ashton team knows about and will give you a head start on because they do what they do. They're the official real estate agent of the Titans. They're the official real estate agent of the Predators. They're the official real estate agent of me. I trusted the Ashton team in my search for my first home, found the perfect one, could not be happier. Been in it for 2 years, and it's all thanks to the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage at GaryAshton.com. So, what most stressed you out about the Titans game? Let me know in the comment section on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. Derek Kine says timeouts, Buck. Well, what about the timeouts stressed you out? Burnt Toast Jenkins stresses me out, says Dylan Madden. Yeah, Jackrabbit has really underwhelmed this year. Derek Kine says, who is healthy tomorrow? Yeah, that's a good question because Ryan Tannehill, listen, the health of the football team, it's not going to be what I pick, but it's probably the right answer. Ryan Tannehill really, really struck. It took them nearly a half hour to get Ryan Tannehill out to the podium. To us, a half hour after like the last player before them talked, which was A.J. Brown. So it was probably an hour after the game, almost probably 45 minutes to an hour after the game when Tannehill finally met with the media. And it's because he got a neck injury. He physically struggled to move and speak with us at the podium. He couldn't look down at us. They're on a podium on a stage, and I don't know how to accurately. But say I'm Tannehill and you're like your row. I'm looking down at you in front of me where the prime time on the road graphic bar is. He physically couldn't turn his head to look down at us, to look down at that bar. He was looking with his eyes down, but keeping his neck and his back stiff and straight. He had to brace himself walking off of the stage of the podium after the post-game press conference. That's a half hour after the football game. And then what's worse is Derrick Henry doesn't even come to the podium. The head of Titans PR comes out and tells us, well, after it started to take a while, I texted one of their PR staffers and I said, hey, is Derrick not coming out here? And was told, no, he's getting treatment. And then the head of their PR staff came out and said, yeah, Derrick's asking for a rain check, guys. He's hoping to meet with you in the middle of next week, which means Thursday before you hear from Derrick Henry about whatever's going on. And I don't have any new information on that. Unfortunately, I've been working to try and get some, and this is going to be the most buttoned up secret that ever the Titans. If you want to talk about an injury Mike Vrabel didn't want to talk about, you don't want to talk about Derrick Henry's injury, because this obviously has ripple effects throughout what they are able to do as far as the sustainability of their season. If anything happens to that for even, I don't want to speculate because I don't know. All I know is that I know he's hurt and I know he couldn't meet with us. And if he's physically unwell enough to meet with us, if his quarterback could, when his quarterback couldn't move, I don't know how the hell Ryan Tannehill got through overtime. All I'm saying is I'm concerned about Derrick Henry. And so we'll see. We'll see how real that ends up being. Ice bathing, says Mark Johnson. Listen, ice, whatever Derrick Henry has, I don't think ice is curing it. But again, I don't want to speculate. You guys don't know. I don't know for sure. All I know is there's a bunch of different things that I'm trying to narrow down right now, and I don't want to give you guys any misinformation by telling you something that is not yet confirmed. But all I'm saying is it's a long way to the bye week, and Derrick Henry got hurt today early, and I don't think he was in very good shape for the rest of that game. He physically looked different. Troy Wood said he was there live, and all game he looked to be trotting and walking very gingerly. Yes, I would agree with that assessment. But again, we don't know. We don't know what's going on with Derrick specifically just yet. So what most concerned me, though, was how bad the officiating was on both sides. I thought the officiating was trash on both sides. I think the officiating, from what I've seen on Twitter from my friends who cover teams like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the New York Jets and the Cincinnati Bengals, apparently there was bad officiating across the league, which is no surprise because the officiating's been trash all year long. Officiating is hard. And let me say this first and foremost. I would never want to do that job. I'm not smart enough to do that job. I'm not quick enough to do my job, and I'm probably not physically conditioned enough to do that job because those dudes are running a lot. But what I'll say to you ultimately is it is appreciably worse this season than it has been in quite some time. And ultimately, when one penalty, even one missed penalty or one late penalty or one questionable penalty can decide a game, to see the way that things happen for both the Titans and the Colts today on the part of the officiating was too much. So what we did with Mike Vrabel today, because Mike's very rarely, he's not going to rip into the refs. But Mike, so Paul Kaharski wanted to ask him about a couple of penalties, right? And Vrabel said, because they obviously had a lot, they had 11. And again, 161 penalty yards. So maybe some of them aren't legit, but a lot of those were, okay? Some of that was just sloppy football, no matter how you feel about the refs. They're not, just because the refs suck today doesn't mean that they're absolved of not committing 11 penalties for 161 yards. So Kaharski says, yeah, I want to talk about penalties, Mike. There seemed to be some bad football out there. And Vrabel, was ready for it. It goes back at him. He's like, all right, give me which penalties you want to talk about. We'll go through them point by point. And so Kaharski starts with the Jeff Simmons roughing the passer penalty or unnecessary roughness penalty that allowed, I think he hit Michael Pittman. Like, it looked like right in the lower back. It's probably a kidney shot with Jeff Simmons' helmet. It looked very, very unpleasant. But Vrabel responded to that one, and then Paul went point by point with Paul, and then I asked him a question, which I thought he gave his best answer. Not that I'm bragging. I thought he gave his best answer all year.
To run to the football, until the whistle, and there was far too many guys on that tackle not to blow the whistle sooner. So, we'll have to keep coaching Jeff. But just so you know, the league said that in Jacksonville when he was running to the ball that shouldn't have been a penalty. So he's going to keep running to the football.
Hooker failing to turn and find the ball.
Let's take a look at it in review. Let's take a look at it and see how much contact there was.
And Byard grabbing the guy around.
He's saving a touchdown. Saving a touchdown.
Did you feel like that was a trend today with late whistles and late flags?
Well, late flag, whenever they're confident. I just think it's mind-boggling that I have to challenge a catch that A.J. Brown makes in the middle of the field. There's 7 officials, and there's replay official, and how many countless of other people, and I have to challenge. Like, I have to pull the flag out and throw it at that point in time. So again, we're going to have to get better. To Paul's point, the penalties will hurt you. The block in the back or the hold there when we're in field goal range, like, that bothers me much more. That has to get fixed much more than an aggressive penalty there on third down or, deep in the back part of the field. Like, hey, we're trying to win the football game, man. We just are trying to get a couple yards and kick it, and we had a penalty.
So I thought Vrabel was great on that today. That's as animated as he's been in a long time about officiating, or it's as animated as we've gotten him to be now. Unfortunately for Mike, that'll probably cost him some money. Like, even as that criticism was so surface level, so it was. I can't say that it was nondescript because it was very specific about specific instances where he's criticizing the officiating. So he's probably going to get a fine for that. Which sucks because he's just being honest. And you know what? He's right. He's right. Mike Vrabel, whatever your criticism, fans do have criticisms about Vrabel, whether it's his ego or whether you don't like a decision that he makes in a game, or whether you don't like the fact that he and Todd Downing allowed Derrick Henry to come off the field on 3rd and 2. Like, there's a lot of stuff that fans like to pick at Mike on. But I'll say to you is he is so damn smart when it comes to the rule book. Mike Vrabel is so damn smart when it comes to the rule book, and for him to know more about how the officials need to do their job than the officials know, he is absolutely spot on there about every point by point that he just went through on a handful of penalties that clearly and obviously impacted the football game. That's what I think about Mike Vrabel. And that's why the officiating stresses me out the most, because you can't trust it. Do you trust NFL officiating? I don't. Do you trust NFL? Not that you would be able to think of an officiating crew in the NFL off the top of your head, but like, I don't think there's one that I know that when I see their name every week when we get our media guide, where I see whoever, it's certainly not, oh, who's my guy? Who's my guy that Titans fans hate? Oh, this is going to drive me crazy. I'm blanking on his name. Anyway, I'm sure he's a nice man, but he really, really just, they don't do their jobs well. And again, the refs have an impossible job, especially in the age of social media and camera. Oh, Jerome Boger. Thank you, Michael Wagner. Jerome Boger is the ref that I was thinking about. And I don't know Jerome Boger. He may be a lovely man, but my God, does he botch a lot of calls. And today, when you're hearing from Vrabel, where he's got 7 officials looking at a play, they blow it dead. A.J. Brown probably would have gotten tackled short, and they would have had the 4th and 2 anyway. But still, they blew it dead before the play had time to play out. There are so many things that the refs do, and some of them are little, and it becomes an accumulation, and some of them are big and obvious and bad, just bad. So when you talk about the thing that stressed me out most of the day, the right answer is injuries. The first and foremost answer is injuries. But secondly is the officiating. And that's league-wide because you can't trust them. You cannot trust them. All right. Z from The Space, I think, says, where'd you get that suit, Buck? So actually I have I thought about keeping my jacket on because you guys really seem to like my Halloween purple suit that I have here behind me. And, it's hanging on the back of my chair. I'm not going to put the jacket on. But I get my suits made at a place in Berry Hills in Nashville. And I'm very grateful for the work that they do. I've gotten a couple of suits made there. This is one of my favorites. And because it was Halloween, I thought I'd whip out the purple and look real good. Now, they don't advertise with the primetime show. So unfortunately, all the free pub that they're going to get today off all of the social media, but there's a lot of social media pictures, which not to sound like a douchebag, but a lot of people are taking pictures because it's a showy suit, but they don't spend money with the primetime show, so we can't give them free advertising. They got plenty of free run on social media today, but I'm very, very grateful for the work that my guys do. And I really appreciate that they make me look good and they make me stand out. And even if you don't like the purple suit, you notice the purple suit. I'm talking about the purple suit. That's all that I care about. And that I look good, which I look great today. I really did. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Let you enjoy the rest of Sunday Night Football, the second half of Sunday Night Football, and then I'm going to take a break because I got to get up at I'm probably going to get up at 4 a.m. Eastern time to drive back to Nashville to make sure that I'm on time for radio because I was supposed to come home tonight, and that's not going to happen, and that's okay. But what I'll say to you is let's do this as a free site. What's the best thing that you saw on the internet this week? Let me know on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. We'll talk about it together here on the Primetime Show right after I tell you what's the best thing that you saw on the internet this weekend. Let me know in the comment section, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. I'll give you mine momentarily right after I tell you about my friends actually, I'm going to tell you about my friends at Brymac Mechanical here in just a second. But Keelan Watson says something laugh out loud funny, saying it's the White Sox. I didn't have on White Sox. That's just how bad my not even training camp, but my tan line is from football season, from being out on the practice field. I don't want to put my leg up for you guys to see, but I might because look how white my ankle is. These are the no-show socks that people were questioning whether I was wearing socks. My ankle, the difference between my shin and my ankle, the color of it is a direct product of Titans practice and my tan line. So they weren't white socks. I had no-show black socks on. But my ankles were so white that they look like white socks. That's great. What's the best thing on the internet that you saw this week? I'll tell you about it right after I tell you about Brymac Mechanical. Let me know on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We'll talk about it together right after I tell you about our friends at Brymac Mechanical. HVAC service satisfaction guaranteed. They're the best in the business, and they'll get you in your comfort zone. 3 locations in Middle Tennessee, family owned and operated. In fact, Chris Hamby, who owns Brymac Mechanical alongside with his lovely wife, Miss Sherry, their children, all involved in the family business. Chris is a diehard Titans fan, diehard Preds fan. He texts me all throughout the course of the game. He just sent me a text that says, crazy gutsy win. Brymac Mechanical cares about the city of Nashville, cares about local sports teams, and they care that they get you the best possible business when it comes to your satisfaction. Guaranteed, as I said, on all your HVAC needs. BRYMAK, Brymac.com. So, what's the best thing you saw on the internet this week? Some dude made a TikTok about falling asleep on his date, and she left him at the movie theater. That's outstanding. TikTok is a magical place. I can lose myself there for hours. Jameis dancing on his torn ACL is the best thing that I've seen. Oh, God, I hope that's not true. Chill Mode says the best thing I saw was the Derrick Henry milk commercial. He's just running straight through aisles. Derrick Henry is the only person who can hold a gallon of milk up and make it look like one of those like milk cartons that you used to get in grade school. Derrick Henry is a mammoth of a man. And sometimes I don't forget that because I see him so often, and every time I see him, and it's weekly, I see this man on a podium 5 feet from me, and every time I'm just sitting there looking at him like, God bless, you are a giant human being. You should not be able to do the things that you do at that size. Dallas Elfman says, no shows with long pants, Buck. Wow, you need fashion school. No, that is the fashion, and they weren't long pants. They were designed to show my ankles. So clearly, Dallas, you are not the person to educate me about the latest in fashion trends. In fact, the people that are responsible for putting my outfits together, I very, very much trust. Now, what I don't trust is my ability to get my ankles tanned well enough to wear that suit. Best thing I saw on Twitter this weekend is my friend's grandchildren's pictures dressed up for Halloween. That's very cool. I like that a lot. Shaq telling his kids, we ain't rich, I'm rich, says Cody. Yeah, that's outstanding. Let's see. There was a ton of TP on those aisles at that store, 4 rows of TPs. Listen, TP for AJ Brown after the Chipotle side. We got to leave AJ Brown alone with the Chipotle. There's been too many bad jokes at his expense. But the best thing that I saw on social media this week was on Saturday, ESPN's College Game Day. Of course, you know, it's the best. It's one of the best live television shows that's ever existed. Kirk Herbstreit. You have Reese Davis. You have all of these great personalities across the ESPN world of college football, and they broadcast pregame before and wherever their game of the week is. Now, I believe they were at Michigan State, Michigan this weekend, and they had one guest picker on particular. They bring on celebrity guest pickers, right? Derrick Henry has done it. Eddie George has done it. They've brought on celebrity guest pickers before, and they always, go over with varying levels of success. Well, the best one that I've seen in a while is Ken Jeong. And if you don't know who Ken Jeong is, you will remember him as soon as you see him and hear him on College Game Day this weekend.
Went to UCLA Med School. Shout out, Tran, you complete me, ho. That's her last name. That's her last name. Relax, ESPN. How dare you?
Great pick. UCLA, great pick. I didn't top that.
Did he say what I think? Did he say on the back end there?
She's her last name.
All right, we're going to play that again because I don't know how many people caught it. Ken Jeong's wife, her last name is Ho, H-O, but he in real time did some very, very risky comedy on ESPN, on Mickey Mouse's airwaves, on Disney airwaves. He gambled and he won, but he got Lee Corso laughing in the middle of it. I love Ken Jeong on College Game Day.
Went to UCLA Med School. Shout out, Tran, you complete me, ho. That's her last name. That's her last name. Relax, ESPN. How dare you?
Great pick. UCLA, great pick. I didn't top that.
Did he say what I think? Did he say on the back end there?
She's her last name.
You Complete Me, Ho is so damn funny. It's so perfect, especially sitting next to Lee Corso. Those guys are the best. You guys are the best. You guys and gals are the best. We appreciate you all hanging out with us each and every Sunday through Thursday night here on the Primetime Show. We'll be back in Nashville tomorrow. Radio show starts at 10 a.m. Central Time. Make sure you're there. Mike Giardi, who was covering the game for NFL Network, he was interviewing Vrabel pre and post game. Mike will join us at 12:20, and we'll have a great time. So hang out with us from 10 to 1 on the radio show, and then meet us back for another edition of A to Z Sports Prime Time right here, Sunday through Thursday night at 8 p.m. or thereabouts. Oh, and happy Halloween.